Hmm. Hello and welcome. Oh, I look so beautiful in this video. I love my look. This is my natural hair. I hope you like it. I actually am in love with it. I feel like I don't want to even touch it. I don't want to chemicalize it or what. It's so natural. It's so long. As you can see, this is my natural hair. I'm so crazy about it. Well, today in this video, we're going to look at 4 emerging facts about inclusion. My name is Shelly N. I am your inclusionist, inclusion specialist. I'm a principal consultant at Taboshi Inclusive. I'm also the founder of this company. We are mainly a consulting company on inclusion matters. Hello and welcome. I've been missing you. It's been about 2 weeks or 3 weeks or even more than that since I've been away, but there's been a lot of work on the ground, so I couldn't have enough time to do videos. But I'm happy that I'm back and I'm happy that you are here. Hello and welcome. 4 emerging facts about inclusion. Fact number 1, inclusion is at the workplace, at school, or at home, or any place that you may think of, is no longer an option, but it's a must. So we know that maybe traditionally inclusion, it was like more like doing a favor to people with special needs. But now we are saying that inclusion is a must. In most nations, there are already laws in place that inform people or that demand that people should put in place policies for inclusion in their workplaces, especially. So this is why I'm saying that fact number 1 is that inclusion is no longer an option, but it is a must. So if you are still lagging behind, you need to make sure that you catch up. You need to find your place. You need to start running because you are already running behind a lot of people. A lot of schools are already putting in place mechanisms for inclusion, and workplaces are putting in place, or even at home, we have to be seen to be putting in place inclusion everywhere we are. Yeah, that is fact number 1. Fact number 2. Fact number 2 is that inclusion is no longer a thing to do with people with special needs, but rather it's a thing to do with all people. So, in other words, inclusion is no longer selective. We're talking about inclusion where you might find yourself needing inclusion. So basically, what we are saying is more broader than we first believed or we first thought. Initially, when it started, inclusion was more about people with special needs, especially people with disabilities. But we are seeing more and more categories being included. Like, for instance, we talk about women being included, especially in issues of economics. We also see people like from poor backgrounds, people who are vulnerable, people from abusive homes, we are seeing people with HIV and AIDS. So you can see how broad inclusion is. It's no longer something that is selective or something that is narrow as much as we thought. Now inclusion has gone broad, it has gone too big, and we are talking about anybody can be included anyhow. Ultimately, it's going to be inclusion for all. That is why organizations like UNICEF are preaching inclusion for all, because really inclusion is becoming too broad and including more categories that we never even thought, people from refugee backgrounds and all those. So that is what this point actually is dealing with. So we are saying inclusion is no longer selective, but very inclusive and very broad. Yeah, fact number 4. Number 4 is that inclusion is no longer an education thing, or it's no longer education restricted. Traditionally, or for the longest time in history, inclusion has been restricted to education. People have not been concerning themselves with inclusion in workplaces in general, in businesses and in business, or even at home, or even in other settings. So basically, we are saying, and this is an emerging fact, that inclusion is no longer an education thing. We need to see inclusion now in transport, in other areas like in tourism. We now see inclusion in health. In health, yes, sector, we see inclusion nowadays in other different sectors. So basically, we are saying that inclusion now is a thing that cuts across. We look at inclusion in economics, or in economic environment, inclusion in education, yes, inclusion in justice and law system, inclusion in all different areas. So if you are on all these different areas apart from education, you should know that you should start concerning yourself with issues to do with inclusion. And like I say, we are moving very fast. Inclusion is moving at a very fast speed. If you don't jump in the bandwagon, you might find yourself left behind. So without causing much fear on you, because the purpose of this video is basically just to advise, to teach, or to educate people and to raise awareness about inclusion. So basically, we are saying that you need to start concerning yourself with inclusion in spite of what sector of or the economy that you are in. Even if you are not in education, you should start concerning yourself with issues to do with inclusion. So that is in fact the last but not least, and the 5th fact about inclusion now is that ignorance about inclusion is no longer pardonable, but it is actually punishable. I repeat, ignorance about inclusion is no longer pardonable, but punishable by law. So this is a very serious statement actually, and it's a very, very serious emerging fact or emerging trend that we see about inclusion. I have said that some nations, some countries are beginning to take inclusion very seriously. And if you ignore inclusion out of lack of knowledge, or by choice, you decide that I'm not going to include this person, I'm not going to hire people with disabilities in my business or in my organization, I am going to sack people if they are sick or if they are disabled, I am going to ignore inclusion matters, then you might find yourself on the wrong side of law. This is what the statement means, that inclusion or lack of inclusion in your workplace or in your setting is no longer something that we can pardon. It's something that we will punish you for. I said the purpose of these videos are not to cause fear, but to educate, to raise awareness. So as you see these videos, please make amends. Inclusion, ignorance is no longer pardonable, but punishable. That is an emerging fact about inclusion, emerging